Okay, so in this video, I'm gonna go over 6 things that you definitely need to remove from your resume as soon as possible. These 6 things aren't helping you. In fact, they're hurting you if you have any of these on your resume. I'm also gonna give you a 7th bonus point that you definitely wanna make sure that you take a look at your resume and remove if they're there as well. Okay, so let's get started with number 1. Number 1 is gonna be date of birth. You want to remove your date of birth from your resume if you have it on there. Now, this may seem like something, well, what's wrong with that? Well, even though you may fill this out on an application, on a resume, it's not really necessary because a resume, keep in mind, is just to help you to get that first interview, right? So you don't need to necessarily have your date of birth on there. In fact, it's a protected class by the EEOC, and the protected class is you should not be discriminated against based on your age. Whether they think you're too young or you're too old, whatever the case is, an employer should not use your age as a way of qualifying you for a particular job. So therefore, it doesn't help you to have it on your resume of what your age is. In fact, you could be putting your employer at risk. In fact, my second point leads into that same thing, which is going to be marital status. Marital status should not be listed on your resume. You should not be putting whether you're single, married, divorced, whatever the case is. There's really no reason why your employer should even know that, number one, nor would it have any bearing on your qualifications for the job. And in addition, it's a protected class by federal law that they are not to discriminate against someone who is of a certain marital status. That leads me into number 3. Number 3 is going to be family status. You want to remove anything that shows how many children you have or what your family status is. There's no reason why your employer should know that. In fact, it is also a protected class, and therefore you could be putting your employer at risk simply by having it on there. So definitely remove your family status from your resume. My next point, which is also important, number 4, is going to be having your picture. Now, I know that some of you may say, you know what, I've already got my picture on my Instagram, I have my picture on my LinkedIn, what's wrong with me having my picture on my resume? Well, it doesn't really help you, number 1. It also can give clues on what your national origin, race, gender, whatever the case is. It's going to give them clues, and they don't really need to know that at this point. All they need to know is, are you qualified for this particular role? And so once they get to meet you in an interview, or once they do take a look at your LinkedIn later, that's fine and good. But initially, they only need to be looking at your qualifications. And so even though your picture isn't a protected class, them being able to discern certain things from your picture is a protected class, and therefore something you want to remove from your resume right away. And in fact, in a lot of cases, it doesn't help you anyway, because most resumes are parsed into what's called an applicant tracking system. These applicant tracking systems usually don't even have a space for a picture. They're not going to show your picture to your hiring manager or to your recruiter. So there's really no point in it anyway. My 5th one is going to be your national origin. You want to remove anything that has anything to do with your nationality. This is also a protected class. You should not be gauged on whether you qualify for a job or not, depending on what nation or country you're from. So remove any of that from your resume. It doesn't help you. It can only hurt you, because in this case, since it is a protected class, your employer can be put at risk by simply viewing those things and knowing those things about you before they decide to or not to bring you in for an interview. So remove anything in reference to your nationality. My 6th one, and this is also can be pretty important in some cases if you've been in the workforce for a long time, and that's having a super long work history. You want to remove that and cut that down. I've seen work histories as long as 50, sometimes as long as almost 60 years of work experience out there, and that can only hurt you, because really, according to the EEOC, age is one of the protected classes, and by having too long of a work history, it allows the potential employer to try and guess what your age is, and we don't want them to do that. Let's don't take them down that road mentally. Remove that. So what you're going to do is probably put anywhere from 10, 15, maybe 20 years at the most of work experience on your resume. Please avoid having a super long work history on there. It's not that you're trying to hide anything, it's just they don't need that level of information at this point. And if you do have to fill out an application after you do get that interview, or when you're about to get that interview, then of course you can fill in all of the required years. And you may find a lot of companies don't even require much more than either 10, 15, or 20 years anyway. Okay, that gets us to our bonus point. And our bonus tip for you is to make sure you take a look at the section that talks about references. A lot of people have what usually says references available upon request, or they may have their references listed and then have the person's name, their title, as well as their phone number on the resume. And I'm going to say that's a mistake. You need to go ahead and remove that. There's a couple of reasons why. Number one is, if your potential employer, your hiring manager, your recruiter wants to contact your references, they need to be able to contact you first, or they should have to contact you first. Do not give them the contact information ahead of time on your resume, which will give them the opportunity to perhaps call your references before they even call you. So make sure that you do not have any contact information for your references. It also can help you, because if the company contacts you first, it gives you an opportunity to touch base with your references and say, hey, look, such and such company is probably going to be giving you a call. I'm in the running for a certain position. I want to make sure I get the right times that are best to call you. And of course, if you're still willing to be a reference for me. Oh yeah, sure, great. So you're able to have that conversation, and they're going to be expecting that, versus it just being on your resume and them just deciding to call your references whenever they want to call them. And I don't even think you even need to list that your references are available upon request. Everybody knows that, so you can leave that off there. Just save that real estate for something else that's even more positive about your background and your qualifications. I hope this was helpful to you. Please let me know in the comments if this was helpful at all to you, and thanks for watching.